Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. You know who it is and who it ain't. It ain't your boy and it is your man, the blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media, signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the mother cuss word share button because the message is more important than the messenger. I've been back for over a week now, and I've had time to think. I've had time to observe. I haven't had time to record, edit, or upload, but I've had time to do the other things. What I've seen happen in this country is, for the most part, it's about the same as it was when I left. I understand that there are fears that many of you are facing, and so the reason why I don't see them is because I did not grow up in that America, and I don't live in it when I come back. It's not the America I'm visiting. However, that America that does not have to worry about these things, unfortunately, is the America into which I could not maintain a place. No matter what I did, no matter how responsibly I did it, and I had to leave. And studies have oftentimes come out and shown the patterns that I have said existed before. Black heterosexual men are discriminated against in the job market, and the pass is given to black gay men. Study came out, showed that in 2014. Black men in the middle class are very unlikely to be able to maintain that. Although 62% of black men are in the middle class, it is more difficult for black youth, especially black heterosexual males, because we know they're discriminated against in the job market, to maintain a middle class status into adulthood. It can't happen for everybody. I said can't with a T. It can't happen for everybody, for most. I do feel very angry and bitter about this. And I'll never forgive white America for lesser things that it's done, so I'm definitely never going to forgive white America for this. And I'm not going to forgive some of you conservatives and Republicans who say, well, it's just the decisions in life that you made. Because I didn't make those decisions in life. And I saw people who did, and I sidestepped that. And the penalty was the same. I've had enough of that. What I'm saying is that I've come back and I have seen again what it was that made me leave and not maintain residency here, and why I will not come back to live. As dumb as the Bedouins can be, there are other Arabs out there. And if I cannot live under black folks in a developed nation, if I cannot live in a Wakanda or a Zamunda because it's not there, then I'll just go ahead and live under them. And some say, well, you're just living under another man's patriarchy. That patriarchy is not out to hold black men back because we're black. It's not out to hold men back because we're men. And if it becomes such, I wouldn't stay there either. I don't play games like that. I could tell you that in a place like Malaysia, it's okay. I'm straight. Malaysia was fine. The climate is very similar to this Gulf Coast. It's actually a little bit cooler. The food is about as good, if not better. The people are generally better. I would take it. Somebody offered me a Malaysian passport now, and I could earn $3,000 US a month. If you got a job like that, I'd jump on it. As soon as my current contract ends, I'd take something like that. I have no interest in trying to stay and trying to prove anything here in the United States, because it's set up for us to fail. It's always something. And you can say, well, you made the wrong decision. I can say that I've made wrong decisions, but everybody has. The difference is when you're one of us, it's set up for you to fail even more. And I've had enough. I'm tired of it. I come back, and it seems to be the same thing. The visit's going great, but it's a visit. But I want to say something to some of the men of my parents' generation. I've got to tell them this, and I've already had these conversations. When you have now hiring signs outside of every low-paying minimum wage establishment, and those are all of the hiring, that's everyone that's hiring, that's not a good sign. Not for people that went to school or went to an apprenticeship so they would not be stuck doing exactly those things for exactly those wages. That's not how this works. You don't tell young folks, well, you need to get out there and get some education and get a skill, get a trade, get something so that you can actually command a price or an amount of money you want. Then they go and do it. And every time there's a now hiring sign, it's some minimum wage crap ass job they were trying to avoid by getting the education and the credentials in the first place. And then you say, well, just get a job. Well, if you ain't lazy, you'll just take that job. No, bruh. See, taking the job you hate the most is worse than having no job at all. They've done studies on this. It results in about the same mental health. It can be just the same. And if you have a job you hate because you're working, you don't have time to look for another job. And then when you finally get laid off from that or fired, then at that point you got to go and look for a job, and that's a full-time job that doesn't pay. And we didn't screw this up. So when someone says to me, well, maybe you can come back here into your country, I say, now, fuck you, it ain't my country. When it's something good, I deserve it, then it's mine, but I'm not going to get it. When it's something bad, I don't deserve it, it ain't mine, and you expect me to settle for that. That's not how this works either. The reason that things were so good for so long for everybody else is because it was at the expense of your and my ancestors. And I'm not willing to entertain discussions with anybody about coming back here to live until the good stuff just falls in my motherfucking lap because I've already done the damn work. And that's what a lot of you have done. Not all, but many of you. And we have to be honest about something. MO2's right about a lot of things regarding the culture war. Now, I haven't heard BGS say things that are against a functioning society and a culture war. What I've heard is BGS say, I know this from experience because my daughters don't listen, and my son's not going to date black women because they don't listen. And so he's pretty much saying, well, I understand what's going on because I've listened and I've watched, but I haven't heard him come out in favor of the dysfunction. And that's why I don't take issue with him. Maybe he said it and I just didn't hear it. Now, I would not have said about MOT what he did. But from what I've been told by others, their grudge goes back further than I've even been aware that there was a manosphere. So I'm not, as I said before, I'm not qualified to jump in on that grudge. But now on that particular issue, I haven't heard what BGS has said about the Pookies a whole lot. I have, matter of fact, if anything, I thought he was saying they don't have to go back and build a furthermucking thing in the community because they weren't welcomed in it in the first place, whether they were educated and from another community or whether they were educated from our community. They were not welcomed, so they don't have to go back and make any sacrifice. I thought I heard him say this before, years ago. But what I am going to say about this whole culture war is that, unfortunately, what we're saying is that those who have come from not the class per se, but those who have come from the mindset of the June bug, those who have come from the mindset of the idness, calling themselves Pookies and Ray Rays. That mindset, whether they came from a zip code like mine, or whether they came from the hood, doesn't matter. They have tended to do better if they hang around us. And that's what I've seen. If you take a black-owned bank, that's the kind of person that gets the job and then moves up and gets promoted. because they still keep some of that nigger swagger with them. And what I'm going to say is that, unfortunately, the black middle class into which I was born, amongst which I was raised, and amongst whom I plan to live my life in the United States and in some part of Africa, that particular sector of black America has now become too enamored with the jigabosity and the spear chuckerism, the negative stereotypes. And I'm done with that. There's no future for my family in this. My parents are old, and frankly, I'm glad that they're unaware of some of these developments. And I don't have the heart to break it to them and break their hearts in their old age. I'm glad that they don't know about certain things. And I'm keeping a lot from them. I have to keep a lot from them. I have to pass it on to my kids. And unfortunately, what this means is that there just simply is not the opportunity for them to continue their lives in black America. And there never was one for them in white America, and that's exactly what we don't want. We don't lament the fall of white America. We lament the fact that we have to fall with them because we did not prepare ourselves. That's what we lament. And frankly, I've come to understand that I will not be having black grandchildren or completely black grandchildren. It's not an option, and it is not my kids' fault. And it ain't even my generation's fault per se. It's not our generation's fault for starting this mess. It's partially my generation's fault for contributing to it. But the one thing, again, that the men of my age group did do wrong is exactly that for which we can take accountability. And that accountability is exactly the one for which the sisterhood does not want us to take accountability. And that is, we made things too easy. Above the belt, below the belt. We made it entirely too easy. Boom Shika can sit up there and get on OnlyFans and make something. And even then they don't make that much. But they feel they've got a better shot doing that, partially because we will pay them. That's our mistake. We should not have done that. We had no business doing this. Many would say, well, you know, I was 15, black mind, you need to ease up on that. So what, man, I was 15, hormones jumping. You know, man, you got to try to get in them guts and you got to approach them. Yeah, I don't feel for guck because that's where they got the mindset from. And I knew this was coming. I tried to say this before. And nobody wanted to even consider the fact that chasing after them, pursuing them the way that we did when they were that narcissistic back in the further-mucking 90s was going to make things to where now in the 2010s and in the 2020s, you can't even start a family with them. They're not wife material. They're just not. They're not even girlfriend material. There is no future. We don't have any future generations. Someone else succeeded in driving a wedge between us. And the way they got us to do our part was by getting us to believe that we had to try too further-mucking hard to get her. And that if you got somebody else, you were just weak and a wimp and you just couldn't hang. You couldn't handle the sister. When in fact, she's had too good of a deal for anybody. See, that regular run-of-the-mill deal that's too good for you in their minds, but it's really not even that good, but rather is normal. That's what they've had. They've had something that is entirely too good. Even when they outnumber us, and they do, it is your job as a professional with everything they want to still go and make the approach and woo them and wow them. And I'm going to tell y'all straight. There ain't no future in that. We can have discussions about building and protecting. There's no future in that either because, again, it's always about entitlement. And at the end of the day, there's no future because even if they don't owe you them draws, there's nothing you can do to earn them draws. You can't build and protect enough to earn anything from them, let alone them draws. There is no future. You don't have one. If your kids are entirely us, your grandkids will not be. And that's not something for which I can even fault the men, because though we've made things too easy and we've allowed that, we still did not make the final decision that we were not going to be around sisters, or we weren't going to give a chance to sisters. No, they made the final decision. They were going to be too difficult for us, drive us the hell away, then blame us for being driven away. But I do blame us for allowing that possibility from the beginning. Starting with these old niggas, the same old niggas, old fools that sit up here and say, well, just take a job, just any job. They hiring at McDonald's, they hiring the Subway. A real man will take those jobs. A real man has other bills to pay. They'll be the first one to say, well, a real man can pay this cell phone bill. Yeah, but see, I work at Subway because you said take a job and I have to pay some other bills, so I have to not pay this one. You're not ready to talk about what bills any real man has to not pay if they're not paid enough, and they still got to pay other bills. See, we've fallen into that same gynocratic way of, well, they've fallen into that same gynocratic way of thinking. If you're a real man, you'll just somehow have more money when they want you to have it. Steve Harvey, I'm talking to you, dumb nigga. I'll never forget when you told that guy Donovan, why don't you just make more money? Like he could just go out there and earn it. That's not how money works. Don't forget, Brother Harvey, you're a talented comedian. I respect that. But you start giving relationship advice, bruh, you the same one that left a wife that was loyal for another lady who been through some mess just because she got green eyes. And the funny thing is, the lady that you left, she was with you when you were filling up your gas tank and driving the hell off because you couldn't afford to pay for gas to get from one venue to the next. You were chasing your dream. The problem is your dream shouldn't have got the F up and ran from you with that kind of talent that you have. That's why I say don't chase a damn thing. Don't chase them draws. Don't chase them dollars. Don't chase a dream. You work for it, but you don't chase nothing. I just had to have a conversation with my daughter about this. She was talking about volunteer jobs she's had. She said, I'm in my teens now and I done already built up my resume with all these volunteer positions. And I told her, okay, great, you've done that. Don't ever volunteer again. What if grandmom says, don't do it? Ask grandma, she'll pay you to do something that she wants you to do as a volunteer position to build your resume. Straight up F your resume. You know why? I've been to college. And I'll tell you what they do in college, especially if you major in business. They don't teach you business. They just talk about it, philosophize about it because they watch too many damn movies. That's what it is. You go into marketing because you want to learn to advertise. They want to reduce it to sales because they don't know how to tell you how to market and advertise. I mean, there's schools that do. There are people that know, but they're not teaching it. They're working for corporations making more money. They're not professors explaining how to do this. So then you're talking about advertising, and they want to come and hand you some things and say, to pass this class, sell these. Like, really? You could go on The Apprentice to do something like that with Donald Trump, just to have him say, you're fired because you couldn't sell Christmas cards in the middle of July. I kid you not. That's how I knew Donald Trump was actually one of the worst ones for us. He's had advisors that have told him what to do that was good, but Trump I knew he was a problem from before because of that. He wasn't even serious about being president. He wasn't ready for that. That's why I never forgave some of you niggas for supporting him. Then to make matters worse, I had to tell my daughter, look, you have my permission. The next time someone offers you a volunteer position, you have my permission to say, I cannot afford to work for free. And if they press you a second time, you tell them, I just told you I can't afford to do that. Now you can take this experience and shove it up your ass. My daughter's got permission to cuss anybody out the second time they try to press for a volunteer position. I straight told her, a company that wants you to work and can't afford to pay you doesn't deserve your work. It's in anybody's interest to have somebody work for free. You're not allowed to call a plumber and say, come fix this plumbing for free. You're not allowed to do any of these things for free. They start talking about, we need this, that, and the other. Yeah, okay, well, here's a list of my needs. Now, who's going to do them for free? And see, unfortunately, you, Black America, You have been this way to the rest of America for the longest, but eventually what happened is that we started doing this to each other. Black-owned business, I'm going to bring you more customers. Man, get the fuck out of my face with that bullshit. You up here begging, you going to bring me more nigga beggars. That's what you going to do. Pardon me for cussing so much, but that's what it is. That's what I've seen with us. And that is a part, unfortunately, that has become a negative part of our culture. And that's not something that MOT or the ones he hates would excuse. Attorney Sperling will not excuse that kind of behavior. Well, you a black-owned photographer. I want you to do my wedding, and I'm going to pass your brochures out. Nigga, fuck all that. Bring me the money. I could buy my own advertisement if you niggas would pay the agreed-upon price on time. We do hold each other back to a certain extent when it comes to business. I know the rest do. But when you think about it, how many times do we open up a business ready to cater to any client, but not really looking for white clients in the first place? So there's no disappointment when they don't walk in. It's a disappointment when one of us walks in, realizes that one of us owns it, and then decides to start negotiating for pennies. I want your best service for pennies. Here's my little bag of coins. You open up the bag of coins. Wait a minute, these are literally pennies. Yeah, I know, but see, I'm going to tell everybody about you, man. Fuck all that. I bought a billboard. Bring me the money. If you can't, bring me someone who can. But what gets worse than that is that you, the black male, you are now like that in the eyes of the system. Well, if you simp enough, I'm not going to tell other women that you are a misogynist, chauvinist pig. Even though at the end of the day, everybody we screwing is one. Now, that doesn't mean they screwing everyone that is. It means everyone they're screwing is one. Or at least they think he is. That's how they treating you. Well, if you be a good friend to us and do all the non-sexual things below the belt that we want, the non-sexual things above the belt that we want, and don't say nothing to us about them drawers, you just sit there on the sideline holding your testicles, waiting for us to validate you, which we're not going to do until we're like Alicia Watkins, divorced with another man's kids. Yeah, it's like that. Then we won't call you a bunch. We won't put you on our white list. I call it a white list for a reason. You get the idea. That's because at the end of the day, what it comes down to is that you are like that. They see you as that undeserving nigger beggar teenager on the street corner, either trying to rap for money or panhandle or something like that. That's how they view you. And when that's the case, you don't have a future. And it doesn't matter what you've done. They're doing you a favor by doing anything with you. They think that when they call you up in the middle of the night to come change their tire because it blew out on their way home from a ding-a-ling appointment that didn't have to do anything for them, they're doing you a favor by bothering you, waking your butt up at 3 a.m. That's how they feel. That's the way they view you. They are doing you a favor in their eyes, in their minds. You deserve nothing else. You never did. There's no future for you. Not in the States. Being here for a week and some change has actually made me more convinced it's not going to happen. It just ain't, man. When I went to a pharmacy, everything was pretty much the same except, everybody was polite. White folk and black folk alike were polite. Except that if I go to one back where I live and work, I have to have a mask on. Here it was optional. But there was a young man that was waiting. He was waiting in line in front of me, and we got to chatting. Turned out he about 18 or 19, younger than my son. And the impression that I got from him was that there's no reason to struggle anymore. Ain't no struggling for us anymore. The marches, because they were a big thing in my hometown. All the marching, all of that stuff, every last bit of it doesn't mean anything. all that marching, all that protesting we did, all the speeches that we gave, all the programs, the community programs people came up with, all the stuff that some guys my age have come around to and come up with because now they woke, meaning, I mean, in a black context, they woke. It doesn't do anything, because at the end of the day, there's still always going to be this underlying idea that will be promoted and said out loud when it's convenient for the sisterhood. We don't owe you niggas nothing. That idea will always be there. If it's not understood, it will be vocalized. One way or another, that idea will always be there. And so it's not going to matter what you niggas do in the eyes of her. You can bust your behind for hours on end, days and then decades, trying to build for them the life they want. At the end, I now think it's exactly what David Carroll said. You cannot give them a biracial baby. And even then, if they have a son, they hope to God he's not one. That's the funny thing. I mean, I'm glad my son doesn't look ambiguous like I do. I myself am glad. But you know what? He ain't gonna give sisters a chance. He done already said it. A Western white woman, a Western black woman, out of bounds. Done. Ain't gonna happen. And I'm glad that he came to that understanding independently of me, actually. I'm glad about that, because at the end of the day, I know exactly what's out there waiting, and I know how he would be disrespected and taken advantage of if he was willing. He can't afford that. I get it. It's the same thing, unfortunately, as sad as it is, it's the same thing with a lot of other brothers, with some of his friends. They know, you know what? No, can't do that. And some people would say, well, you know, look at how so many kids nowadays are socially anxious and they've got all these afflictions and complaints. You know what? I do hear more of this from kids and younger adults nowadays. You know, neurologically diverse and that sort of thing. I do hear about that. Some of these things are real, some of them are not. Some are exaggerated, but real. I get that. The problem is this. If you got a bunch of ladies like this, then that means it doesn't count when the guys have them. So what I'm saying is that worst case scenario for any guy, he still should be treated better on average, at least respected more. Not necessarily owed that which he's not owed, but he should at least be respected more and treated as more of a normal man than what these guys are. From what I gather from this young man, and also from some others about my son's age, from what I'm gathered, all of them are seen as being some kind of afflicted. And usually on the Gulf Coast, my age group would just say afflicted. Just a short term for afflicted. But see, that's the thing. Worst case scenario, you think, okay, well, it's even because everybody's afflicted in that generation. I mean, you got kids with no afflictions that have to sit up and say they got some because they got to blend in. That does happen. And they're becoming young adults now, like my son and his peers. And what's winding up being the case, unfortunately, is that, you know, it doesn't matter. If he's got a speech impediment, yeah, there are a bunch of girls out there that got speech impediments. No, he's not good enough for her. They could be what I'm saying is that it's getting even worse, where an equal match is seen by these ladies as being an insult. At their worst, they deserve a man at their best that every other woman wants. The end is already there for us. It's already there. Repatriation now, which I've been preaching from a young age, because I believe in what Garvey said and what Du Bois accepted. Repatriation now, at this point, unfortunately, is literally the only way. That's it. You can't bring the non-ADO sister into the States or into Canada because she will get ruined. Dennis Sperling has said that, but I knew that beforehand. If he'd never said it, I would have told it to you. There's nothing that you can do to prevent that, except not let her have any friends. Well, you know, that is actually abuse and oppressive. So, I mean, you could sit up and say, well, your friends got to be from your home country. Well, that's a unrealistic way to try to govern someone else's friendships. But the problem is that even in that case, some of them are one way or another. You bring them into this environment, and that's what you're going to be dealing with later on. And they will sit up there and fuck the shuck up for years until they're entitled to half. They will do that. They don't stay with you. I don't even think they can. I want you to understand and realize that. The next thing I want y'all to understand and realize too is that it's not so bad when you leave. Sometimes you got to get used to a lesser standard of living. Other times you don't. It could go either way. But you got a future. If you're willing to bounce, you got a future. At least a shot at one. You don't have one here. You just don't. Doesn't matter how much you make. We've already seen it. You can make millions. You can be the president of the United States. If your wife is a Western woman by your side, you're going to catch hell. And Chris Rock turned out to be right, because Laura Bush did not disrespect Baby Bush to his face that we saw. None of that. And she ran over and killed an ex-boyfriend in her teens. She didn't disrespect her husband when he was governor or president. Barack Obama was like, I felt like I was a baby mama. Felt like I was a single mom. Well, Barack is okay. He's all right. But then you can take some of these other men. George Clooney, his wife complains about him. Tom Brady's wife complains about him. Y'all already know Jay Cutler's wife complained until now. He's saying, I want half that company. And Dennis Sperling endorsed that move. Because Rock done already been through it. There ain't no future in this. It's not just about access to them draws, but that has to be on the table. Matter of fact, you need to prioritize this and understand this. Exactly what Miss Philosophier said that black men should not focus on. Recreational sex has to be a priority. You must make that a priority. If she has a problem with that, don't lay down with her, let alone marry her. That's what has to be the case. Because all they're doing is sitting up here offering you bad deals that now, I've been saying that for years, but now I can see on the ground, they're offering you deals so bad, there is no future. That's not even a sustainable relationship. You can't get with them. You can't even bring someone else who has some sense over here to live this first world life. You can't even do that and it be sustainable. And if you want to run through several of them, then you go ahead, bring one over. Enjoy it while it lasts. She leaves. Hopefully you don't let her become eligible for alimony. Then start the process over. You just like recycling them, go ahead and do that. But understand, understand, you can't even stay here in this nation in which you were born. It is ruined. Repatriation, if you want there to be a future with black children, with two black parents, unfortunately, you're going to have to leave the U.S. Not just leave alone Western sisters. You're going to have to leave the U.S. You'll have to leave Canada, the U.K., New Zealand, probably Australia too. You're going to have to fit the guck out. You don't have any other options. And some of you in some islands are going to have to leave those islands too. In the Bahamas, y'all told me that's over with. I know Jamaica's over with because they're Klingons. I mean, you got to be Badman and Rude Boys. It's the same High Bristol Philly. It's just with a different accent. You got to be done not only shot somebody, but hacked them up with a machete after that. While they alive, you got to be done all that stuff. And it's no secret. I already know in Trinidad, God have mercy, you got to be a road dude. You got to be the stereotype. You can't be anything tame. You can't even be the kind of guy that doesn't get in trouble. Oh, no, absolutely not. So you got to leave a lot of places, man. Repatriation actually, literally, is more important than what I thought it was the last time I talked about it. You literally don't have another option unless you want to be absorbed. And if you're going to be absorbed, you got to sit up and say, well, who should be allowed to absorb us? And I'm going to tell you now, if you get absorbed by white folks, your grandkids are going to be racist. Believe that, because that comes with being a white Westerner. That comes with being a Western European in Western Europe or in the diaspora. You're going to have some racist ideas imparted to you. Some of them try to fight it, and they don't even know how. Some of them try to be allies, and they don't even know how. We got to tell them, see, now you're being a bad ally. It's not even something that we want to do at times, but there are times that some of them, they want to be down, but they don't really know how. Lying to kick it, stuff like that. If you get absorbed by them, you will become an ancestor to those who hate you. End of. It's already like that in Arabia, except there's just no hatred. They can't even see that we're equal, and most of them have our blood in them. That's what you're looking at. So I'm telling you, repatriation, if you want a future for the black race to remain black, it's going to be repatriation. If not, you're going to have to look and say, well, who's worthy to absorb me as a black man and my seed? Who's worthy for me to share my my descent with them? That's what you have to do. Maybe some of the Latin Americans are, others are not. They've diverse themselves. I can tell you now, you certainly don't have any business allowing with the Indian population to absorb you. Pakistani population is even worse. If there is a Persian population where you live, they don't deserve that. Afghans, same thing. Why? Because they're white adjacent, psychologically speaking. If there's a Chinese community where you live, don't let them absorb you either. I don't have to tell you why, you already know. Filipinos? Sure. But then again, how long are they going to stay unruined? You got some areas where they're third and fourth generation, don't even speak Tagalog, and they're just the same as any Westerner. Depends on where you are. So you literally have to choose between repatriation or deciding who's worthy enough to absorb you, and hope to God that they don't wind up giving rise to some of your descendants later that look at you as an inferior. I think I've said enough. Thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, black out. You know the rest. Assalamu alaikum, black, heterosexual, non-select male power just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. And thank you for being patient during my absence on this vacation.